Hey folks!
Hello!
Welcome back to Wandering into Wellness. Finn and Lydia as ever, and between us we have a lovely guest,
Hello.
Dr. Ciara Kelly.
Hi.
Who is a medical doctor,
Yes.
who is also a wellness advocate, and very interesting to us as a wellness advocate because she's very much interested in how we can integrate the medicine that she might have studied with a kind of a more preventative approach, diet, lifestyle, etc. kind of base. So why and where did that kernel, that little seed, get sown?
Let me think. So probably when I started my blog, actually, which is why I love my blog so much, because it's kind of shown me my path. So I finished medicine. I did a year of dietetics before medicine, via a messy affair with the HPAT in its first year. But anyway, that's another story.
Okay.
So did dietetics.
You survived.
Yeah, survived. Did dietetics, loved it, but had wanted medicine. So I did HPAT again and was like, okay, look, I'll go for this. If it doesn't work out, I really like dietetics, really like nutrition, and I got medicine. So I went for it and just said I'd give it a go. Finished 5 years of that in 2015. Did my intern year, and then over the last 2 years I've been trying loads of different medical specialties as what's called an SHO, or a senior house officer. It's kind of like how you move up through hospital medicine, basically. And after intern year, as is the custom of many kind of post-intern doctors, a lot of people went to Australia. A lot of my friends went to Australia. And it wasn't quite right for me then. I wanted to try a few things, and I wanted to figure out what I wanted to do. Like, there's so many interesting, like, I love medicine. There's so many interesting areas, like, you know, cardiology, respiratory, endocrine, gastroenterology. And I knew I was interested in all of them, but I knew one of them was, I'd have to figure out, you know, which one am I going to kind of go the path of. So I did 2 years, 3 months in lots of different specialties, and was posting around that same time. I downloaded Instagram, which is probably my downfall. End of social life now. But yeah, so I was posting pictures of like just recipes I do at home. I was meal prepping a lot for nights and stuff, and trying to stay, you know, within a balanced diet in my intern year, which is tricky at the best of times. And a lot of friends would message and say, oh, what's that recipe? You should put it all in one place. And I was in a peripheral hospital and had to kill a lot of time between commuting and waiting for traffic. So I thought, I'm just going to try a website and just see how that goes. So I started on something called Blogspot, which I wouldn't recommend as a first blog platform. Changed it to WordPress about 3 months later, and it just grew from there. And I realised, I was just really interested in the power of how we live and can affect our health. Really. And so who was your first influence in terms of like where did that, like, you know, you're like looking at them for recipes, looking at them for inspiration in terms of, like, you know, food as a driver for healthy lifestyle? That's a really good question. I've had a few over the years. I've been a big fan of people on Instagram like Alice Living and Food Medic for quite a while. And I like their journeys because it really is about their own relationship with food and how that evolved. Trying to think back on even the cookbooks that I have. I'm pretty sure I have Gwyneth Paltrow's cookbook, which is really embarrassing because I'm not much of a fan of that anymore. She wouldn't watch this, so it's fine. So it was just a little bit out there for me. But
excuse me, Ciara.
She's your best friend. Oh God. Jamie Oliver, actually, I really enjoyed as well. And I would have cooked a lot of his recipes with my boyfriend. So really enjoyed just trying loads of different cuisines, I guess. Yeah, it's hard to say one person. I think if I had to pick one person who's been like who has majorly influenced my interest in prevention, it's Dr. Chatterjee, Dr. Rangan Chatterjee, and his 4 pillars. When I found him online and then saw a few of his talks in person, I went to a conference where he was a keynote speaker, and then I bought his book for my mum and just for myself as well. Like, I was like, that's exactly it.
What was he talking about at the conference? Do you remember?
It was the Institute of Health Sciences conference, and it was about Alzheimer's and diet, basically.
That was last year.
2 years ago. In Dublin. Were you?
It was
no
amazing.
way. Oh my god.
That was great. That was amazing.
Class. There was actually a fire the night before his talk. I remember as well in the hotel.
I missed that part.
But he made it. It's fine. But I think they were talking about, I can never pronounce this word, but the Bredesen protocol. I can never pronounce it. I can spell it.
It's fascinating, the Bredesen protocol.
Absolutely fascinating.
Because he's done. Dr. Dale Resin is, like, for those who don't know, somebody who specialises in Alzheimer's, not just prevention but reversal. And because he's speaking from a position of strength as a professor, he's kind of able to kind of push the boat out on kind of saying, like, well, listen, this is in my clinic. We've seen reversals of blah, blah, blah. It's phenomenal. And through a dietary protocol and lifestyle and all these sorts of things.
Absolutely.
All make loads of sense.
It was, he was really, probably that, if I had to pick one person, maybe not so much in a recipe context, but one person who's really influenced how I think, and just kind of normalizing it and being like, yeah, it's okay to be really interested in this area. It's not like a hospital specialty, because acute medicine is what you see in hospitals, and really what we're talking about is chronic conditions and lifestyle, and all that's very long term.
Before the acute is necessary.
Exactly. So yeah, I'm answering your question in a really long-winded way.
No, that's perfect.
But,
that's exactly what I'm looking for.
so the blog just kept growing, and Instagram grew with it. And then I tried to link it with Twitter and Facebook and things, and then along that way I was just getting loads of lovely feedback from people about articles I'd write and stuff.
That's good. So I've seen, like, internally you've been bringing some kind of health promotion events to your colleagues. I mean, I'm so interested in that, because for us, so a lot of actually the recent podcasts that we've shot have been around breaking down the barriers between medical professionals and the public and their patients specifically, so that there's not this kind of like two-tier kind of approach where people feel like there's a distance there. And how has that type of information and education that you're bringing there, how's it gone down? I mean, it's lovely probably for them because it's coming from one of their own. That has to help.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's lovely for many reasons. I mean, I guess the reason I did it was because in the hospital I was working in, they were trialling Headspace for junior doctors and giving like free subscriptions basically to, I think they ended up aiming for 100, and then so many signed up it was 150.
Cool.
So it was amazing, and loads of doctors were giving it a go, and I'd started doing kind of meditation and mindfulness, or learning about it and trying it with the Calm app, which is my favourite one. Earlier this year.
I get the little ads and I stay on for that 10 seconds like,
it's so good.
And flick through to the next Instagram thing. It's gas, isn't it?
It's so funny.
It's a good pause.
And earlier this year then I just started getting into yoga as well, and it's so funny because if a year ago you said to me like you'd be like a total yogi, like doing mindfulness every night, I would have laughed in your face and like, I can't even tumble.
Even a year ago.
That's amazing. Definitely.
It's
even
addictive though, isn't it?
It's so addictive. But you have to be, I was saying to someone recently, like you have to be in the right frame of mind to try it. Because I did, like at my first Wellfest, I think the last thing I did on the Sunday was a yoga class, and I did it to stretch, and that was my perception, you know, and it's just insane to think now just how many like amazing other benefits you can get besides that kind of like restorative aspect of it. But to answer your question, I digress all the time, it went in really well. I think it was an area, it's not a niche, it was an area that wasn't being addressed that I thought we should, and a very helpful colleague or senior colleague of mine who was involved in health informatics in the hospital wanted to try and set up something along after the Headspace, and she came to me and said, I've seen your blog, would you be interested in putting together some kind of program or pilot of events? And that's what we did.
And what did it include?
So the grand plan was Wellness Month for June, because changeover is July, so that's when all your new interns start. Everyone changes hospital, and it's always the big July changeover. So we wanted to do a month. And inspired by kind of Dr. Chatterjee, I wanted each week to be like a pillar of health, so like food, movement, tips around stress management and mindfulness, and then talk about sleep. What was feasible in the end was 2 weeks, and so we kind of condensed it into 2 weeks. So we did 2 evening yoga classes, we did 2 talks on mindfulness and meditation in an introductory kind of way, and then we did do some guided meditation within it as well, which was amazing. It was really cool.
So a room full of how many people?
Well, let me think now. Probably on particularly the second session we had, I think there's about 30.
Cool.
Yeah, and we
That's
did it.
powerful.
We have
That's
like
nice.
teaching hours at lunchtime, so I just kind of like sabotaged those. I was like, you have to come, but also we're going to do some chanting. But it was brilliant. One of the consultants in the ED is very interested in mindfulness and was really helpful into like a guided meditation, and we had some really supportive consultants and regs involved. It was great.
So ED, that's emergency department.
Emergency department, sorry.
That must be the place you need to get in with meditation, isn't it? Because like, Jesus Christ, having been on the patient side of that, it's insane. Yeah,
and having worked in it, like at both frontline and then kind of the second line on call and stuff, it really is. And I think that's probably why most of the research you'll find on the benefits of mindfulness for doctors comes out of studies with ED. And there's a lot of online resources that I was shown when I was organising these events, particularly on ED or A&E websites, like for staff and stuff, on blogs and things. It's so needed, absolutely.
You can just totally imagine how that's such an unbelievable job. I mean, it's just phenomenal to think that people have to not only deal with the stress and the trauma of what they're seeing, but then actually make really important decisions as well.
In the middle of the night, at 4 a.m. when
after
your sleep was terrible because you've had 7 nights before that. Like it really, really is. And I think that's what I loved about the events, was that we were normalising well-being for doctors. Because if you don't look, like, there was a lovely quote that I came up with this quote just to give to as a kind of a tagline for the events, but it's like happier doctors mean happier patients. And it's so true. Like if I walk into a room to do it, let's say a clinic appointment with someone, and I go in and say, you know, oh, how are you? How's it going? Yeah, cool, grand. You know, or I go in and say, how are you? You look great. You know, what's the story? How's your week been? It's just, even if you meet a friend like that, it's a different interaction entirely. And that person's, like, let's say headache that they had, their pain perception is probably less because they're in that better mood, you know, like, and there definitely is that science link there, you know. Can't give you a reference, but like, you know yourself.
The lady who had last week, Dr. Jane Uyghur, is doing her PhD. She's a GP from Canada, and she's just finishing her PhD in compassionate medicine.
Oh, wow.
And all about where the research evidence base is there, not just for mental improvements, but for medical outcomes with those types of, you know, improved
and just even just simple things like the environment being more empathetic. Like nicer chairs, smells,
that's what I was going to ask.
Colours, those kinds of things.
Is there ways for the hospital environment or hospital like that can be repatterned? Like, are there people must be like, because guys who are going to your meditation, I would imagine kind of going, shit, and we're going back to this. I mean, this is tough. This is not like we're kind of immediately we've decided that this is necessary, but we're going back to kind of the black and white shade version.
I think there was kind of two things that came out of particularly the mindfulness piece was, okay, you've come and done this session with us, this is an introduction, but how do you bring this into your daily practice? Because it'll make you feel better, and it's going to make your care for your patient better. You know, on a personal level, like I noticed between 1 week of nights at the start of January, which was peak flu season, and it was really horrible. Like, it was 7 nights, and it was just a really busy time in the hospital. True, for like, it was, you know, there was a lot of hard work done, particularly in A&E. And then I did it in March, the same set of nights. Now, different time frame of illness and things like that. It wasn't flu season, but I had started meditating in between the two, and just doing 10 minutes of calm. Totally different experience, totally different effect.
And is it your interaction with people that were a big difference, or was it your energy at the end of your shift, or what was the...
I think the energy is always subjective and depending on what happened that night, but definitely my interaction with myself in terms of you're handed a stressful situation and, you know, how do you respond to that? And then how you interact with the person, let's say, who's in the stress situation with you, whether that be the patient, whether that be the nurse who's communicating the urgency of the situation to you, all of that, kind of your reactivity to it. Like, my dad, if I remember years and years ago, he gave me this lovely quote about stress, and he was like, it's a gift someone gives you, and you can decide what to do with that gift. And you can turn it back and say, I don't accept that in the way you presented it, or you can take it and go, I'm going to turn this into like productivity, positivity, and it's always stuck with me. It's easier to implement sometimes than others, you know, like in emergency situations, you know, you kind of have that the fight or flight, you know, response going on, but in the lesser acute stuff, you can try time to implement it. Definitely. Or even, you know, what was really lovely when the consultants was saying she started doing with her patients is talking to them about meditation and actually saying, how are you feeling? Have you heard about this thing called mindfulness and meditation? It's class. Cool. You know, it's working for me, it might work for you.
And it comes so differently. Like, obviously, when I'm saying that to people, they're coming to my yoga class or my meditation class, they want to know about it, so they're coming to it. But if I then just say it to someone who's not in my class, they're kind of like, that thing, whatever. But when it's coming from your doctor,
exactly,
people are like, it gives them permission to think that it's a valid thing that can help them, and we all know that it is, but it's just putting some kind of benefit on it, like going like, this is valid, you can spend your time doing this thing.
Totally. And I'm always acutely aware of that, like kind of being interested in this area, and even with information that I, you know, put out on Instagram or the blog and things, like, you have a weight behind your name and behind what you say purely because you're a doctor. And purely because you've done that qualification. Even if you're not interested in this area, you know, it's so important to just remember that. And it's a really privileged position to be in. Regardless, like, you know, when you're seeing people in their most vulnerable state and you've the power to help, really privileged position. And then the fact that, like, what you're saying purely because of the fact that doctor comes before your name, even in a junior status like myself, it's really powerful. And it's just sometimes just kind of a little bit, you're very grateful for it, that someone would actually listen to you because you say it, you know.
And so in another aspect, and so obviously mindfulness is a big aspect what you're bringing in, but also you brought in nutrition as well.
So
what did
that
you
was
get
really
them
fun.
all eating nuts and nut butters?
Let me think now what we had. Oh god, I was very blessed. I have worked with quite a few brands now through the blog, and just through meeting the faces behind the brands at places like Wellfest and stuff, and I basically kind of reached out to them and said, I want to do, had a kind of a semi-vision for it, but in the time frame we had to organise it, I think it actually worked out really well. We did a social food evening. So I kind of combined bringing doctors together after work to just have a chat about the day. If they were on call, you know, pop over, grab a snack, come back, and then reached out to, it was about 8 brands in total, I think, who all kindly donated. I just said, we're doing this event, like, would you be interested in kind of helping us out, supporting with just some samples, like literally. And I ended up, never forget, got a delivery of like 83 items from Alpro because they just wanted everyone to try, like the yogurt, the milk, the, you know, everything.
So 83 different items?
Different items. I said, well, like, you know, let's say there was 12 coconut milks and 12 coconut yogurts. They wanted like 3 products per doctor because I was estimating 20, 30 people. It was amazing. Like Glennis helped us out, Homespun, Cleana from Bella Bites, Sarah's Raw Bites, a meal prep company called Bolt's Healthy Eating. They were brilliant as well. I'm trying to not leave anyone out now that I've said it all. Kind, yes, Kind. They gave us some random acts of kindness. And Near to Nature. Like so much stuff. Enough that I had, enough for the food evening. And then for the following meditation session, I just brought extras and people could just have the snack to take home. And it just exposes people to choices and options. And
what percentage of people in the room were already aware of those brands, already eating them?
Oh, good question, actually. I had quite a few people ask me what Alpro was.
Really?
Yeah.
That would have been, for me, that would be like the most obvious one.
Yeah, that was an eye-opener to me, purely because it's a supermarket brand, not because I would be like, you know, oh, it's a very prominent plant-based brand. Because, do you know what I mean? Like, it's just funny what you see when you walk into a shop, you know? And I say that as a person who is kind of plant-based, so I'm kind of aware, and I've been to a couple of Alpro events and stuff. But yeah, that was an eye-opener.
Wow.
Really funny. Because a lot of the brands are smaller, so I would understand people would.
I wouldn't expect people to know Kind bars, but they're great. They're actually probably one of my favourite brands.
So good. Oh my god. So it was brilliant, and I was able to say, you know, they're actually, they're in the shop, like they're stocked in the coffee shop. You can pick them up next time.
Okay.
And it's great.
And can you influence what's down in the coffee shop?
I personally can't. No. But they've a good range. Well, in my hospital, really good range. They can get Kind bars there. Cleana's Bella Bites are there.
Are Bella Bites in there?
Lennis, in the coffee shop.
Who was your You're James? No, you're James.
I was James's until
James?
just now.
Wow. Cool. Yeah, they actually have they have a smoothie bar thing going on, and like
it's definitely up there. They've brought in like Chopped into the shop downstairs now.
Really?
So yeah, it's cool. It's cool. I'm a big meal prep advocate myself, but when you're stuck, it's there. So it's great. You know.
And what not you, but other people who mightn't have the interest in kind of nutrition and food that you do, what would be a typical thing that you would see? So, for example, from my perspective, when I trained to be a prenatal yoga teacher, a lot of the people who were training alongside me were midwives. And what I noticed was that in our course in general, the people who weren't midwives were coming in with like homemade healthy snacks and other things for the course, because the course was long and you're there, you're really exhausted, you're doing loads of physical asana as well. And then the midwives all just had massive packs of Haribo and then Iron Brew or like Red Bull. And we were all like,
really?
But you're like the medical people. Like, how come you're eating that stuff? So what would you see? Like, what would be, you know, say someone on the opposite end of the scale to you, what would they tend to be reaching for in those situations?
I suppose there's a difference. I mean, there's a difference between what kind of doctor you are and there's a difference between what kind of person you are. So, you know,
that's important.
I don't think in an individual's food choice, like, just because they're a doctor is influenced by the fact that they're a doctor. Do you know what I mean? So it's kind of so we did a survey before we started. I mean, so that's what I mean. Like, I don't think there's, you know, people would say things like, oh, would you judge your doctor if they smoked? And they tell you not to smoke, you know? So I think that's a reasonable thing. If someone stood in front of you in A&E with a cigarette in hand and said, shouldn't do that, you'd be like, but you're doing it. Whereas nutrition doesn't really come up that much in the typical, like, let's say, ward round consultation that we do as for inpatients. In the outpatient setting, it will, depending on the specialty, like diabetes or things like that. I guess it varies. I would see a lot of, in fairness, particularly my intern year and then the interns I've just come from working with, a lot of people doing meal prep. And we had this lovely thing on James's every Tuesday called Fair in the Square. So there's a food market every week in the main garden. It's incredible.
Who are the people?
Really good.
Because I saw some. It wasn't like Katie's house, but it was some like really good. I was like good food people. I was like,
there's a whole range. Oh my god, there's let me think now. There was like a stall. There was kind of a South American style stall. There was there's a really good one called Juice Heads. They're brilliant. They do like vegan burger boxes.
That's the one I saw.
So oh my god, delicious.
Yeah,
like really inspired
food. I've never seen them before.
And people who aren't vegetarian at all be like, I love that stand. My god, it's class. Like absolutely brilliant. And then you'd also have Teddy's there for $99. So it's a great range of stuff. Nice. Yeah, like the Kale and Cocoa girls were there as well. They're setting up there now too.
Are they?
Yeah.
Great.
For the moment, anyway, I think so. Yeah,
they've been like thinking about what they were going to do next for ages. And they were like, come on, do something.
I know. And very soon I'm not actually there day to day anymore next. I love such a good every Tuesday. Brilliant. So that was brilliant because it's really good for hospital morale and it kind of opens people's mind to food choices. Yeah. So to answer your question, I'd say I saw a range. Like a lot of my colleagues would meal prep, particularly for like nights and stuff, and then like you'd see kind of everything really. Like so when I was an intern, the food choices within the hospital weren't as good. So you wouldn't have kind of the range of salads and stuff downstairs in the shop that you do now. So you want to have that, you kind of have to bring it in.
So do you feel like there is a shift in the changing?
I think I suppose I would probably say the demographic that I work with are kind of all my own age. So it'd be kind of maybe personal choice around food would be different to the attitude to how a doctor approaches a patient about food. Do you know? So I think the attitude around from that point of view is changing.
The personal point of view, as opposed to the doctor.
No, I think the doctor-patient point of view.
Okay,
I do think it is. It's very slow here, but I do think that it is changing. I think our events hopefully brought it out there a little bit more, at least.
And the other thing is really though, like looking at what hospital food, though, like people who are in the hospital. That's kind of the big thing, really, because we all have friends or family that are in the hospital and they're trying to heal, and we all know that when you're healing at home and you're making like soups and stews and nutritious things and eating your fruit and your vegetables, and then you're in the hospital, and so often the doctor tells you like, oh, you shouldn't be eating this, and you shouldn't eat this, and you shouldn't eat this, and then the only options that you can choose while you're in the hospital are all those things that you've been told you have to avoid, and you're like, I don't understand, how are we meant to get better?
I know, and even within it's not, I suppose, the hospital, what's served like to each patient hospital isn't something that as doctors we have much influence over, really. It'd be more from the dietitian department, not that they like prescribe the meals as such, but that we wouldn't day to day really have much influence on that choice. It's a very tricky area, is what I would say.
Because it's cost driven so heavily.
Yeah, for a large part of it, and it's not something that I've currently been within the framework of to know like the intricacies of like how it's managed and things like that. You know, I did a culinary placement in dietetics just for like, it was actually ended up being a week because I broke my ankle, but we had to do that as part of dietetics, so I know there is a huge kind of learning point within like nutrition and dietetics, but we wouldn't really have much of that in our medical training. You know, but I agree, I think it could be better. It is not hospital specific, I think in general.
But if you look at hospitals around the world, I don't think, when a hospital, let's say the Western world, unfortunately we're not unique.
No,
it's not just the Irish system that's
no, absolutely not. No, it just seems that there's this big gap between like doctors getting more informed about nutrition, giving that information to their patients, and we're seeing that change coming up. But then the patients who are stuck in the hospital and can't leave, like even when you're just giving birth. I remember giving birth to my son, and then like they go like, oh, you know, you're starving afterwards, and you just want to eat like I just want a piece of fruit or something, and all they can give you is crappy white bread with the most disgusting red sugar jam that's dyed with some fake food colouring, and you're like, what? Just like run a marathon. I don't want to eat loads of sugar.
I was vaguely impressed actually with the breakfast I got after I was in A&E after a bike crash a few years ago in James's, and I got McCain with soda bread.
Really?
McCain with soda bread and orange juice. I was like, buh? I wasn't prepared to be getting fed that day. I was like, I thought I was just about to be let out. I was like, oh crap, this means I'm here for ages. It was a bad sign in that case. But I was like, I was pleasantly surprised. But that's the only meal that I've heard of any of my circle that have been pleasantly surprised. It's I know, but I know there's a lot of tensions there. It's not straightforward.
I think part of it as well is reflect. Like I find a lot of the times when I'm talking to people about food, it's denormalising the norm. You know, and there's a couple of consultants who are involved in like the kind of the obesity side of things in Ireland, and task force and things like that, but they would very much be very outspoken about that, the fact that like we denormalise, let's say, what a normal snack is, like a pack of crisps or like whatever, chocolate bar, that like they're all in balance, like there's nothing wrong, you know, with things like the kind of the 80-20 approach. I have absolutely no problem with that. I think that's how you stick to sustainable choices. Definitely. But the problem is that I don't think for a lot of people, and this is very hard when you talk about like, you know, health inequality as well, you know.
It's about availability.
And then ease of choice, cost as well is a huge thing. And then perceptions too, like perception of what the norm is.
And perception of the cost, actually.
Totally. And I think it's about that broad shift as a country. You know, that's where I see Ireland need, like, that's where I want Ireland to just
make a big stride.
Definitely. And the same with physical activity. Like, I think they're both.
But the physical activity thing, like, where did that come from?
I know.
10 years ago, nobody was running.
I know.
Now you can't actually get around Phoenix Park if you want to walk. You're like, oh sorry. You know, it's amazing.
It's amazing.
No,
it's
that
such
part,
a powerful thing.
That's the. I actually think it's one thing I've loved seeing recently, and the UK have been quite good at this too. They had this kind of hashtag one change, but to kind of just get people walking more, and just being more aware of even the basic guidelines, you know, and the harms of sedentary like predominantly sedentary lifestyles. I think that's been really powerful. And I think there has been change. Like we had the heat wave recently. You couldn't move on the Clontarf seafront for the amount of people out. I was like, this is just like Australia or something. Like,
and even like I was saying, we were joking about this before, but I was in TK Maxx yesterday looking for something specific, and in the normal clothes section there was like 2 rails of tops or whatever, and then there was just about 20 rails of fitness clothes. It was just like 3 rails of leggings, 3 rails of tops, 3 rails of vest tops, 3 rails of like cover-ups, and it was like, what? This wasn't like this even a year ago. The fit, because obviously I'm always looking for like fitness gear, and then you're like going in, usually you've got like 1/2 of a rail with like 3 pairs of rubbish leggings, and now it was just and everyone was buying fitness stuff. It was really like amazing.
I always get given out by my sister, and she's like, you need to buy normal girl clothes, not buying activewear. I'm like, but it's so pretty.
You wore normal girl clothes today.
I did. I made an effort. It was a struggle. I didn't start my day in this dress. I made an effort. Nothing.
Where were you? What was your morning actually?
My morning was gym.
Okay, which gym did you go to?
I have a local one called Slender Health in Raheny. Yeah, I was training in Herberton around the corner.
Okay. I just saw you in Sandyford at was it flat 45? Something 45? What's it called?
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, I was doing. F45 is over in Sandyford. Yeah, I was doing their classes. That's the first one here that opened last summer, and they were doing trial and stuff. Did a couple classes there, and then the IFSC one opened this year, and they've just opened one in Trinity. I'm actually going there tomorrow.
Cool.
Tomorrow morning.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You managed the F45.
I had to ease myself off.
Go on. What is it? What is it about F45 that gets so different?
Do you know what? I figured this out because I actually wrote about it because I was trying to figure it out. I love the really lovely thing, and it's why I love Wellfest so much too. I love community around wellness. Like it's really powerful, and particularly like it isn't unique to F45, but like you get a group of people in the room, no matter what kind of workout you're doing, you put on some music, you high five, as cheesy as that is, you have a bit of a laugh, it's really, really fun, and I really enjoy that, and I love seeing other people getting enjoyment out of that too. And it's the same at Wellfest, like people were trying spinning, there was like a trampolining section this year. People went a bit mental on that one. Anyway.
Was Jade teaching that? Did you see?
No, I don't.
Oh, she's so good. She's amazing. Well, she's not a trampoline teacher, she's an amazing dancer, but she teaches Pilates. Used to teach in what's it called? Oh, I can't remember.
In Platinum.
Platinum, exactly. She moved on to Platinum. Cool. But she does. I've seen some of the videos we're doing. Oh my god, doing like the trampolines. It's insane. It's hilarious. Yeah. She's such a castle. You just have, when you've got a wiry energy person doing it. Yeah. It's off the charts.
Oh, it's fantastic. And the thing, like I love the gym because I love resistance training. It's that and running are like kind of my predominant forms of training that I just like. Yeah. But I think it's brilliant because classes just inspire that kind of good feeling around you. That's why I really enjoyed the F45 vibe. And then I do like my own training as well, because I think it's hard. The thing about classes is that it can be hard if you have specific training goals. It can be hard to meet those.
Focus on those.
Yeah, exactly.
And so what specifically did you do this morning? What did you focus on this morning?
Leg day.
It was leg day. And so are you a fan of the individualization of body part things, sections of bodies? Because there's so much debate over this.
There's so much. It's something I've done a lot of kind of self-research on. There's a very good podcast I listen to called the Empowered Body Podcast. It's by a strength and conditioning coach called Adam Willis, and it's really good. Like it really taught me about like what is the structure of your training and how is that going to help you achieve the goals you want. So the reason I just like to split it up by like lower body, upper body. I do mixed as well. I've just been doing a 2-week trial of his program, and I'm going to try a month now and see. Just because from a recovery point of view, like if you look at the resistance training data, they would say to leave like 48 hours between each, like let's say
if you're
lower
doing
body.
hypertrophy sort of stuff.
Exactly. And I think it's nice to have that structure if. Like I think it's resistance training is really, really important for healthy aging, and it was my Friday focus on my blog last week because I think it's really important. And like you say, we didn't know about these physical activity guidelines 10 years ago. We probably did, but we just weren't putting it out there. Yeah. And social media didn't have the power it does now. Yes. But there's a huge piece about strength training and balance work and resistance training for healtty aging that I think we need to get better at.
Big time. Balance is huge. Isn't there this amazing statistic that grip strength and one leg hold or something like balance are the 2 major determining factors for independent living and beyond your age.
I would definitely believe it. I've definitely seen grip strength referenced even with like mortality outcomes. Like it's really
amazing,
insane. Absolutely.
And even like one about like being able to stand up, sitting cross-legged and being able to stand up without putting your hands on the ground is another one. They did that in this workshop that I was doing, and they got everyone to see if they could do it. And it's amazing how many people can't do that.
Even if you like if I sat in this chair and you put my arms across my chest, like even being able to stand up like an elderly person, like frailty is so common in the hospital, and we're an aging population, and it's a hugely potential preventative factor, you know. It's one of my, that and sleep, one of my bugbears right now is just like, I'm not saying you have to do it in the gym, but like even
favorite subject.
Yeah, we'll get there. Throw it in. But Dr. Chatterjee has this great thing, like a 5-minute kitchen workout, and you know, boil your kettle, wait for it to boil. Even simple body weight stuff, like starting with an on your knees push up, like squats, things like that, tricep dips with a chair, like, because there's a huge the problem with the gym is that a lot of people perceive it as this kind of bodybuilding.
It's an us and them thing. There's
like Arnold Schwarzenegger's there and I can't go there because he's there. And it's not, it really isn't. It's such a powerful intervention. And obviously cost is a factor for that too, which is where resistance training
and time
is great. And time, absolutely. But it was kind of why I wanted to write about it on the blog last week, was just because it is really, really, really well kind of backed up as a preventative factor. Like falls have such a morbidity attached to them, and if you can at least mitigate some of that by maintaining muscle mass and kind of slowing that muscle loss that we get as we age, you know, it's called sarcopenia, like if you can slow that down and maintain and preserve, you know, it's such a powerful thing. If you could look after yourself and manage your own, like what we call ADLs, or activities daily living, 70, 80, it just really, your quality of life through the roof.
It's huge, and you feel so much better. I mean, you do. You just feel like happier.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like, you know, if you have an injury and you can't do something, it's the most frustrating thing in the whole world.
It's amazing,
like,
isn't it?
if you can't even dress yourself or do your own buttons or get yourself to the bathroom, like, it's heartbreaking. It's really, really heartbreaking.
How'd you go with the broken leg?
Well, no, ankle twice. Twice, yeah.
You're close together?
No, I think it was the other foot. My most recent one, well, that was about, about 4 years ago now. But I used to play a lot of camogie, and someone swung on my ankle. I know. It was nasty.
Oh, that is nasty.
Got me out of my hospital placement though, so that was nice. Well, no, as in I was meant to do, it was actually really funny. I was starting the placement, then my ankle got broken, couldn't finish it, and then got medicine. So actually, that was all part of the dietetic side of things. So this one off. Medicine, cool. Very sore, very frustrating recovery, a lot of Netflix.
Yeah. What's it like now in terms of mobility? Do you have to do a lot of work? Healed well?
Fine, actually fine. I was very, very diligent with my physiotherapy.
I'm sure you were.
Yeah, I feel like
I had every colour of resistance band. No, it was really important to me because physical activity is a huge, I find it very helpful from a mental health point of view. It just makes me feel better, you know.
So you always were quite sporty, so camogie was a big thing growing up?
Camogie, running, I hold an All-Ireland C championship in volleyball as captain.
Excuse you.
I often leave the C part out, but it was very impressive at the time. That's so much fun. Me and my friend used to joke that we'd go to the Olympics. We did not. But it was really fun. Yeah, I played a lot of sport, and that's the kind of community feeling, that team sport feeling. Yeah.
So were you always more team sport than individual sport oriented?
I was always a mix, I think, because running always held a very headspace vibe for me, and it was something that I always loved to do. And then when I went into the latter stages of medicine, it was just really, really hard, and kind of too hard to commit to teams when I was living on campus and just the hours.
You're just going to disappoint people, unfortunately.
And I didn't want to lose fitness, so I decided to start training myself, basically.
Ever any thoughts of putting gyms into hospitals?
Oh, for doctors or patients?
Well, let's say both, but like...
Well, we have physio gyms for patients, so we do have that.
Of course,
for doctors, I know Australia do it in a lot of... they do.
It'd be really good.
Yeah, really cool.
Do they have already, like...
It'd be like Google. It'd be great.
Wouldn't it?
Exactly, but the Google hospital.
I know.
But that's like a lot of my work is going into corporate workplaces and teaching yoga on the lunch breaks, and that's then sponsored by the company or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is there that? Do they have that in hospitals?
No, that was part of the reason why I wanted to drive wellness events for doctors, because I have a lot of friends who would be, I have a lot of friends in the medical sphere, but a lot of friends outside the medical sphere, and who are like inundated with wellness oriented what's the word I'm looking for, like initiatives and themes and stuff, and well-being talks, you know, like almost like credits to use for yoga classes, and you can charge for them, and it's insane. Like people are in well-being departments within their, you know, company they work with, and you know, I suppose one thing is that like burnout is so high among doctors at all levels, and if you don't look after yourself, you can't look after anyone else. Exactly. And we kind of have to look after ourselves for ourselves. So that was another tagline of our events, was like, you know, well-being organised by doctors for doctors, because there isn't that being done for us, I guess. Why that is, I can't. I've been trying to figure it out, but
and is there a feasible thing? Is there like a lunch break, you know?
Kind of. That's like, we have, depending on what hospital you're in, there'll be, and if you're in like a training program, there'll be like teaching hours.
Yeah,
so
you're going to rob more teaching hours, aren't you?
Yeah, pretty much. But why not use that?
Absolutely.
Why not teach about it?
To learn about yourself.
Yeah, because I mean, you can argue that like we all have a personal responsibility to look after our well-being and to live healthily and all that. But you can't always be in control of that, and particularly in work. Like on a night shift, it is really hard to make good choices. In the first place, you're on a night shift, so it's unhealthy in the first instance. But grabbing, let's say, the bar you packed in your bag, usually a kind snack bar, thank God for them. But versus getting back to have an hour's break, you can't control that. For the Tupperware that you have sitting in the fridge, you might not get there.
And what do you do, if anything? What did you learn in terms of melatonin, serotonin balance? Did you, like, in terms of regaining your circadian rhythm? Were there any particular things that you find that were really?
I had a night's routine, and then I started reading into the data around shift work and was like, oh crap, will I eat during nights? And like they kind of say you shouldn't.
Yeah, the fasting thing is really interesting, isn't it?
I think it's very much what works for you. Like the thing about, I suppose, different nurses, like, is what I would say. Like nurses often do like 7 nights on, and then they have a week off where they'll do 3 and 4, so 3 nights on, 4 days off and stuff. Whereas for us, we do ours like, well, for my particular 2-year thing, every 3 months you'd have 7 nights and you'd have a week off after that. So it wasn't like it's a regular thing. Like I am technically in shift work when I'm on call or when I'm on nights, but it's not all the time.
Okay.
Interns will do, when I was an intern, I did a week of nights every 3 months, and you'd have nights on the weekend once or twice. So I used to always have my own set routine of like, let's say the day I start, get up really early, do something active, kind of try and sleep in the afternoon. Always hated that day because you're going in that night. And then it just gets a bit easier. Some people would just stay up all day and then they're wrecked the next day, so they sleep really well. Like in terms of food,
nutritionally,
I don't think I was really reading into it, or at least to be honest, the data wasn't really coming out there the way it is now about circadian rhythms and sleep and stuff. Or at least it was probably emerging. So I literally just kept my food the same. I meal prep the way I meal prep for days. So I'd make something like a dal and just bring it in. And just make 4 servings, 4 nights or 5 nights or whatever. Bring snacks. Like a lot of people would bring like yogurts and fruit and like hummus, another really good one. So just things to keep you going. Like the odd time now there was a protein bar packed, but like you're on call and you've got to keep you going.
Absolutely. And be better that than nothing. 8 cups of coffee or anything else.
Exactly. Well, that was the other thing. I never took like caffeine on nights. Pure, like some people would have when it started the shift, and even some of the studies would say that's fine, because you are changing your rhythm for a little bit. But I just kind of avoided it altogether.
Do you take some caffeine, obviously? But
I'm a coffee a day, definitely. Coffee in the morning, definitely.
But you wouldn't have it when you're on the night shifts,
No. I just, I don't think I'm that, like, I don't think I particularly feel it. That much. But
really? Nice.
It's more just kind of, this could affect me if I go home and try and sleep. So
for sure.
Don't risk that.
Yeah, exactly. Like I used to go to the gym after nights and just use that as kind of a stress buster, get my head out of the busyness that was there, or sometimes really hard nights you just need it, or swim or something. And I got a bit more, once I got into yoga actually, I started doing that a little bit afterwards too, because when you think about it, you just come from like a stressful cortisol fueled night shift.
You don't want to do that again.
You don't really need to be going and doing treadmill sprints.
No,
and you learn these things yourself. That's why I called, my blog The Irish Balance, because I'm Irish, but also because like I'm always trying to find balance, and I don't think you can always be perfectly balanced. So it's a journey, and no one's perfect. But if you're trying, that's the most important thing.
That's it, and even just waking up to it. Cool. So we named this podcast. We decided.
I was going to say, we have not talked about nothing at all. We've just talked about life.
I know,
amazing.
It's fascinating. So, do you have faves? We've got a plate here with Brazils and almonds and walnuts and cashews and pistachios and hazels and pecans. I think we've got them all.
You literally, I think, have them all, Well,
that was pretty good, actually. I nailed it. Well, I work in health food.
I feel like everyone has a fave, but like I find it so hard. I could probably rank them for you.
Rank them.
Pretend they're not listening.
I know, but like
rank
probably
them,
are.
Rank them.
But no, I actually find it really hard to pick. Like at the moment, it's cashews because I'm loving everything that I can make with cashews. But I have a sneaky love of Brazil nuts. Like they're big, chunky, delicious, gorgeous.
It's my absolute worst.
Really?
Can barely
eat one right now.
No, in fairness, I can eat them coming in top shop.
Thank God.
Surprise.
I don't know, there's some taste in there. Like I'll eat them, but I would never reach for them.
Specifically, why do we like Brazil nuts nutritionally?
Selenium.
And why is selenium important?
Thyroid function.
Big time. Powerful.
And how many do you need to eat though to affect change? And when? How often? Blah blah blah.
We don't really know. From what I've read, selenium content is declining in the soil massively over the last 60 years.
Okay.
So whereas you would pick a Brazil nut, like you get 1 or 2 Brazil nuts 60 years ago, and you could have like up to 100 micrograms of selenium existing in them, and now you might get literally 0.
Oh, really?
So okay. No, because I was reading a little bit about it, like before in advance of doing my studying.
Yeah.
But like they were saying, you don't need very many. But that's really interesting.
So there's a really interesting study called McCants and Widdowson study. Have you heard of McCants and Widdowson? Is cool. So it's like they took a bunch of different foods and they've been testing them for 60 years, I think, on every decade from the same origin to establish what the nutrient levels are like, and the nutrient decline is like, that's ridiculous. Like in broccoli, like the iron has gone down 60%, and like a massive difference. So when we look at nutritionfacts.org, I'd love to know where their data is coming from, because I think they're just picking from what we understand to be in a food as opposed to what you're actually getting. So I mean, when they're talking about macros, the macros are the macros, but when you get micronutrient level, we're not necessarily playing with a fair, a fair field. It's not a fair depth.
That's really interesting.
So that's one of them. Selenium is a particular one because it's soil dependent, and you can get selenium depletion in like one side of a field versus another. It can be like really distinct.
So tell me then, what are the best ways to eat Brazil nuts? Where can you maximise their nutrition going into your body? Like, do you soak them? Do you cook them? Do you eat them raw?
Phytate, I guess. Is that what you're kind of? So
I'm asking questions. I'm not trying to lead you. I'm not leading you.
Yes,
I'm just asking.
Okay, so with Brazil nuts, there's not such a big issue with phytate. Almonds, walnuts have a huge issue with phytate. Phytate is essentially an anti-nutrient, as I understand. You can correct me on these.
Slow down.
It's a phytate. Thank you. It's an anti-nutrient that's the first time you've actually said that
in
the podcast, but you probably wanted to say it a lot.
No, I haven't. It's such an interesting.
She wasn't allowed to tell me slow down. Probably the problem.
It's just such an important topic, and I think sometimes Finn knows so much stuff from his job that he assumes that people all are bored by what he's saying because they obviously know it too.
True.
Whereas in fact, the average person amongst us is going, "What? That's the interesting bit. Slow down. Like, let us absorb the information." Exactly. Tell us the phytate.
So phytate and oxalate are two of the big anti-nutrients that are known about. That phytate you get in a lot of grains and a lot of nuts. Oxalate you get in a lot of green foods. You get in a lot of like kale and spinach and that sort of stuff. Both of them, it's interesting because there's this massive hype online about phytate, but phytate breaks down super easy with soaking or roasting or any sort of processing basically seems to break down phytate. Okay. If you don't break it down, then phytate is known to bind iron, calcium, copper, lots of other nutrients from the gut. So it's worthwhile definitely doing a little bit of processing, but Brazil nuts are not one of the ones you have to worry about too much. You have to worry about the starch level in Brazil nuts more than anything else. They're like one of the few nuts where you're getting a predominant amount of starch over fat, even though you have lots of fat in there.
Same for chestnuts, I think.
Chestnuts. I never really eat chestnuts.
I went to Nice before Christmas. My sister's doing an Erasmus there, and it was Christmas markets, and it was amazing. And they do, oh my god! And I had this thing about getting roasted chestnuts. It was just delicious. They were just roasted, like on wood open fire.
No, you just take the thing.
You can put cinnamon on it if you want, I think. But oh god. My family were like, "What are you doing?" Like, we're gonna go get popcorn. I was like, I want my chestnuts. Mum was like, "Well, now you've got 20 of them to yourself." I was like, I probably shouldn't eat 20 of them.
That's so funny.
That's another question. Is there a thing as too much nuts, too many nuts?
Well, like if you go guidelines, like they say 30 grams a day roughly in a serving, which actually I went and googled because I was curious how many nuts are in 30 grams because it's going to vary per nut. Something like 20 almonds makes up like 30 grams. I was like, I don't eat 20 almonds, but like I think the thing about them is it depends how you eat them, doesn't it? You know, like I think a lot of people would probably just grab a handful and probably wouldn't overdo it. But if you told someone like these will, cure your heart disease, which they obviously won't do in isolation, they might eat too many, and then think that that's all they need to have because they're quite calorific, but they're very nutrient dense.
Yeah,
that's
big
the thing.
Time.
So
exactly.
Small amounts, but like regularly is what.
And should you be varying the nuts? Like, is it important? Is there a lot of difference between what you're getting from all of them?
From one to the next, they're actually massively different. It's kind of weird. Like in terms of the fatty acid ratios, you've like lots of omega-6 in our cashews, omega-6 in our almonds as well, but a whopping amount of omega-3 in the walnuts, which is one of those interesting
The walnuts
things.
are powerhouses.
Isn't this the one where it looks like the pot of the
signatures?
Oh yeah,
that's
class.
Have you heard of that thing?
No.
So there's a thing called the doctrine of signatures, where if you look into nature and you look
Sorry,
at...
that's
cool, yeah.
Wow.
But it's where you look at a food and you can establish something about what it's going to do for your body. So
celery is for bones.
What's up?
Celery and bones.
Celery and bones, absolutely.
Okay.
Elderberries and the lungs.
Yeah, grapes and the lungs
like
as
the
well.
alveoli.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
beetroot and blood,
yeah,
so like menstrual.
Yeah.
All those kind of red coloured foods, weirdly. Yeah.
I'm loving this brain theory. This is so cool. I can never look at them the same way.
Yeah, I know. They really just so look like the brain, don't they? What are other ones?
Walnut. There's loads, like yellow. So a lot of the foods that would have been traditionally yellow, like I think I can't even think of
plums, peppers, peaches.
No, it's more flowers. Where they're used as herbal medicines for
like dandelion and marigold.
Where they represent kind of bile or whatever, and they happen like pregnant to the liver.
You should look into that. It'd be a cool blog post. It's lovely. You can see some lovely infographics on it.
Oh, I love infographics.
It's one of those ones where science is kind of caught up with slightly hokey, like esoteric ideas about traditional healing or whatever. It's kind of nice.
It's cool though.
And it's weird. I mean, like, why would people hundreds of years ago go like, and it literally is hundreds or even not thousands of years ago, to go, we know this one's for brains. It looks like brains, and to trust that. It doesn't make sense.
I guess they didn't have any other way of knowing. Like, they have to just trust.
Imagine how many times it must have gone wrong before they got it right.
It's so funny though, because you know how you see this is why I made, if anyone can't see it, I made nut butter with walnuts, and it amazes me. Like, I make my own nut butter because I have a huge issue with how expensive nut butter is to buy when it's such a delicious food, and it's so easy to make, and you can buy a pack of nuts for like €3 and get a full tub of nut butter. Nice. I remember seeing hazelnut butter somewhere for like €9, and I was like, why is this priced when we could make this? Do you know what I mean? Like, and it's everywhere. It's not unique to one shop. But I was like, I've never seen walnut butter anywhere.
That's true. We have I think you might be going home with some walnut butter.
Are you serious? Have you not been to
No, I have.
Sun and Seed raw walnut butter is
the
most amazing walnut butter. Yeah,
wow.
And it's like sweet even though it's raw, which is amazing. They soak
Can I try some?
Yeah, can I try as well? I was I'm looking at like a single item.
Like I said, I'd like it a bit sweeter, but I think it's lovely. I put a bit of cinnamon and a bit of cacao in it, which is subtle.
So tell us how you went about making this so people can make this at home.
So I roast nuts when I make nut butter for the most part because I find it breaks down easier, and I actually use my NutriBullet, and I haven't broken it yet. So that's great. I nearly did making energy balls, but we're still there. We're still alive.
When you hear the motor going,
it was bad. It was bad.
Yeah. I use a Magimix, and that's totally fine.
A lot of people would be really surprised by that. A lot of people have said to me, like, how do you make your own? You're like,
I know, people always say that to me. You just put it in.
You don't break it.
Press the button.
So you want to add water, or you like
no, I just literally, let's say 200 grams, or whatever your food processor can hold. Roast them, 10 minutes, don't burn them. Last batch of pecans I bought, they were black, and I was so upset.
At €6 or 250 grams, that's an expensive mistake.
Yeah, it was bad. My sister was like, why are you so upset? It's just pecans. I was like, you don't get it! It's a whole mixed jar of nut butter.
This is the same one who was laughing at you for getting all the chestnuts, He's like, chestnuts.
Yeah, that was my mom. This is the one that tells me I need to buy normal girl clothes. They're very wise. They're very wise people. Yeah.
You need them in your life.
I feel like
I need them in my life.
Then just put about like half a teaspoon of cinnamon in and about the same of cacao, depending on what flavour you want.
Okay,
so you want a more chocolatey one, like you could do it with cashews. I've done it before with cashews, just put cacao powder in, and it's lovely.
Favourite nut butter that you make yourself? Is walnut your fave?
No, probably not. I'd say pecan.
There you go. I got you to choose a favourite nut by the back door.
Nut butter.
You did it.
Nut
no,
butter.
You did it. You
no.
The rest of them are at the door.
I have pecans are my favourite nut for sure.
Are they? Well, that was easy.
We didn't get macadamia.
I didn't get
I knew we'd missed one.
I'm out.
You
did get pistachios though. I don't like. I have a friend who's obsessed with pistachios. Actually, are
you not a fan?
Well,
she's a green, like unroasty one.
It's only because I have to peel them to get in there. So like,
there's something about that. I think when you get into like a habitual thing with the little shell thing, that's kind of a fun thing.
Salty.
You always see those people who are from kind of, I want to say Moldova. That's a terrible. I'm just picking a country with pumpkin seeds with the whole.
I love it. I love it.
Sunflowers with the husk.
Yeah, sunflowers
with the black and white.
Yeah,
and then spit them on the ground. Pipas.
Spain. Spain is the name.
Okay, and you find them there as well.
Yeah, we always had Spanish students in our school, and they always had pipas and chicas, which is the corn ones.
Oh right, yeah.
And I love them.
But they need a spittoon for them.
But you can also eat like a couple of the hulls.
Yeah.
Apparently, it's good for like
clearing out parasites.
Yeah, clearing out parasites, and also appendix.
Yeah. Okay.
Appendix health, apparently.
If it doesn't get stuck there first.
Yeah, exactly. In small quantities.
That's gas.
Give it some work to do.
That's where the parasites live. So it might be that. Who knows?
They're great food though. They're packed. Like they're literally packed with good nutrition. And yes, they are calorific, and I think that's why a lot of people. See, it depends what way you're eating them too.
Yeah,
you know?
Calories as a proper vector for health. Discuss.
Oh wow! Give me 5 seconds. No, I don't think food should be reduced to numbers.
Yeah.
I think...
Great.
Yeah, no, it's not. Well, it takes enjoyment out of it. You know, like 80-20 is the only number I'll allow. Like, I think people talk about, like, you know, macro tracking and, like, should I be aware and stuff. I think education around food is so important. I think it is really important to know, like, let's say there are carbohydrates in potatoes. There is protein in chicken. You know, like, you should know what's in your food.
Yeah.
But reducing it to numbers, I don't think, like, short-term sustainable, but not long term.
Yeah,
I don't think.
It just gets too obsessive.
It does, yeah, and I think it doesn't really engender, what's the word? It doesn't bring much enjoyment.
No, exactly. It's all denial based.
Yeah, exactly. And the problem is that, like, sustainable change is often really, really slow and does require a little bit of education, a lot of education. I think we often underestimate that. And, like, I've written about it a little bit with a friend who's a dietitian, and, like, the real answer isn't sexy. It's not black and white. You know, it's kind of slow, small, sustainable changes and denormalising a norm. Yeah. And then I suppose what's nice about not bringing it to numbers is that you can kind of teach people about food and, like, you know, I think it's just so much more valuable to, like, someone asked me recently, why would you make your own hummus when you could just go buy it?
Make your own.
And I was like, well,
it's just so far out of my bubble. It's too funny.
And it was like, you know, I was like, I take pride in that, you know, being like, I can sit here and make this that I could go out and buy, but, like, it's really cool, I can bring this from scratch.
So
you
nice,
know?
and also, like, you've got friends coming around, you don't have anything in the house, you're like, what'll I do? You have a tin of chickpeas, and you go, oh, quick, hummus, veg sticks. Everyone's delighted.
Yeah, exactly. And you can say, like, I made that. That came from, you know.
And there's a thing about making food with love and imbuing love into food and that having its great quality as you're eating it, that you're eating that thing.
And don't get me wrong, like, I am no saint. Like, I went into, there was a Life Force, Life Force app, they do apple cider vinegar and butter and stuff. They had a pop-up for a charity recently in town, which was great. Yeah, so I went in, obviously, you know, to try lots of different things. And, like, bought almond butter, it was delicious. And yeah, I could have gone home and made it, but, like, it is, you know, you're not perfect. You can buy options, but it's nice to know
There's also, like, other ones that people make that are delicious, and it's not that you can't enjoy theirs as well as making your own.
Yeah, but if you want to save a few bob and still enjoy something that is bloody expensive on the shelves, it can totally be done.
And also that, like, if you have a family, like, from my point of view, kids just love getting involved in cooking, and they're way more likely to eat something if you involve them in it. And, like, I'm lucky my kids always loved nut butter, so that's not a problem. Like, she goes, I want hopsack nut butter.
Hoppack nut butter.
Having tried it, I will agree with you. That is totally good palate early.
No, he's really into his palate. He's like and you can ask him, like, when you cook a meal, you can ask him what ingredients are in it, and he'll be able to go, like, capers, olives, you know, anchovies.
Like what?
Yeah, he's really mad about that. Like, he even I'd made some cake, like, homemade healthy cake thing at home, and he was out in the green with his friends, and one of his friends was like, can I have some of that? And he was like, yeah, and then the friend was like, oh, does it have salt in? Because I don't know why he couldn't have it. And he was like, it has salt, rice milk, almond butter, dates, and then he just listed off every ingredient that was in the thing. I was like, yes, my son, yes.
Like sponges, exactly. That's amazing.
But if you don't have a kid who tends towards nut butter and they're more like a Nutella type of thing, you can make your own healthy version of Nutella, and then they can go for it and enjoy it as much as they want. But they're making it themselves, and they love it. They love that thing of, like,
well, I go and see if our tahini squares are ready. Speaking of which,
oh my god, there's tahini squares. Oh my god.
Yeah. So while we're talking about that,
I love tahini. Oh
so do I. Tahini.
I get emotional.
Tahini is, it's God.
It's soul
really,
food.
Isn't it?
It is soul food.
And it's so calcium rich.
It's
great, yeah. So tahini is one of the highest. Sesame seeds are one of the highest forms of calcium that you can get. So for breastfeeding mums, tahini is an amazing thing. You can make all the tahini cookies, or black sesame milk is another delicious milk. Have you ever made that for yourself?
No.
My friend Katie Sanderson, who makes the peanut roux. Yes.
Yeah.
I know. Everyone who you say that to just goes, peanut roux. If you haven't tried it, you can buy it in the hot
Similar to tahini, like really hard not to
just
eat.
Get obsessed.
Yeah.
But she makes this delicious black sesame milk, and it's really high in calcium and so yummy. And then you can turn it into black sesame ice lollies in the summer.
Ooh,
so that's another one you could look at. Gorgeous. But what are some of your favourite recipes to do with nuts? That might be kind of treat things that people are going, oh, I'd love to make a cake, or I'd love to do something, but they can be nut based. What do you have?
That's actually a really good question, because it's something I've been trying to do more recently. Like, I have some favourite savoury recipes. Like, probably one of the most made recipes on my blog is my cashew dal with butter beans, and the cashew cream is just like blended cashews. It's unbelievable. And I made a vegan cashew sauce recently using nutritional yeast. Someone bought it for me and was like, you'd love to cook with this, try it. And I'm mad for recipes that it's in.
Nice.
But I did.
Go on.
like not quite same as these now, but I did tahini caramel squares on the blog 2 weeks ago.
Oh, I saw them.
They are like, oh my god, they're so good. And there was ground cashews in the base, and then used tahini for the caramel with dates, and then the top was just a big load of dark chocolate. It was so good. I actually brought it to a yoga class, and they were gone in seconds. Like, I didn't even get any. I was like,
so people can find that recipe on your
it's on my blog. Yeah, it's one of the more like faffy is the wrong word because that puts someone off, but it's one of the more ones you take a bit of time. You got a dinner party, or you got some friends coming over, and you can freeze them. So it's great if you don't eat them all at once, which is the reason I brought them to you, because I would have eaten them all. I got tahini in, and my friend Sinead recommended to me the one they have in Brother Cupboard, and it's good stuff.
What one have they got? Good. Is that Candy Lass, is it?
I literally can't tell you what the name of it is. It's like a green lid and kind of that colour.
Green lid or green lid?
Green lid, green writing, and then like that colour tub.
Okay, wicked.
And then someone said to me, "How can you eat that by the spoon?" Like I really can't. I find it really like kind of stuck. Vicky, if you're watching, but
clawing.
Yeah, that's the word. Yeah, I totally can eat by the spoon though.
Me too.
Yeah,
once you get
really good. It seems to be a dividing question though.
It's such a delicious thing to put on top of like porridge or anything. Oh
yes,
thank you.
Oh my
Ben,
God.
this looks pretty.
It does look pretty, doesn't
Yum.
it? It's got black salt and pomegranate seeds through it.
How did you make this now?
This is coconut oil and cashew butter actually, and tahini,
my God.
and then salt and vanilla extract and very little else.
Wow.
Tahini fudges are so good because there's like a million different ways.
that.
Like banana tahini fudges are very different. It's really caramelly.
And
then you can also put chocolate, or like I do marbly swirls on the top of mine sometimes.
I mean, you say banana. How do you get the, like, do you blend up banana, blend it?
So it's like banana and ice cream, but in with the tahini. But you have to eat it quite quick.
Yeah, because it melts down.
That is like
These
the fastest thing you can
incredible.
possibly make. There's a tiny bit of maple syrup in there, but like if you want to get a kid to get calcium, magnesium, you want to like you can put lots of stuff in there.
It's the only way I can get Ruben to eat tahini.
Oh, right,
it's great for nut butter, but he is not. Any time I've made tahini cookies, because I make these delicious tahini sesame cookies.
Okay,
lovely.
Which are really great for breastfeeding as well. And he just goes, well, he can just taste the tahini a mile off, and he's just, this is disgusting, but the tahini fudge, he'll eat it by the bucket load.
This is so good.
So yummy. The pomegranate is so good because it gives that kind of pop of juiciness.
Yeah, isn't it fun? Because they haven't totally frozen yet. It's like a little bit under frozen, but yeah.
Tell us about black salt, because I didn't know about that.
Oh God, right now?
Have you heard of black salt?
I have not, but I'm about to.
No one can talk about it. It's
stuff.
some kind of volcanic thing, is it, Finn?
It is.
You can just nod.
Yeah, it's volcanic salt. So, as opposed to a sea salt, it's a salt that's been aging for millions of years in volcanic soil, and so it's much more mineral dense. So where with the regular sea salt you might have, predominantly, sodium, potassium, those kind of minerals. Within a black salt, or with the Himalayan pink salt as well, you get all the 86 trace minerals that the body needs, and much more balancing and a much more gentle saltiness, which is what I love about it. It's kind of it's much more moist. It doesn't hit. It doesn't have that like hard hit of sodium.
And is it kind of nutritionally? Is it better for you than the Himalayan pink salt? Because I always use that pink salt. Or is it
similar? I have at home. Yeah.
In all honesty, I couldn't say for sure. I mean, like it's that black that there's probably quite a lot of carbon in it, which is probably not great in huge quantities. It's kind of our kryptonite, really, carbon, isn't it? Even though we're made of it, it kind of poisons us, and it robs nutrients as well. So. Small amounts of it looks pretty and fine, but I think Himalayan pink salt is one we recommend an awful lot from a chelation and all sorts of really interesting facts or interesting uses for.
I think people are kind of, you see it so much now that pretty much every house people have Himalayan pink salt
it's
now.
Weird. People come into the shop who've never been to health food stores before, and I'm like, oh, and then you might use pink salt in that. And I'm kind of like almost mentioning it as an aside.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh yeah, I have pink salt in the colour, don't I? And they're like, yeah, right alongside the Saxa. You go, wow.
I know.
I think part of it is that it kind of got trendy, didn't it? It was on a lot of like health food blogs and stuff.
Yeah.
Really?
I've been in TK Maxx recently. I was like, there was a wall of Himalayan salt from loads of different.
I have 2 massive bags in my cupboard because this brand called Monsoon just got in touch and said, can we send you some to try out? And it's lovely in cooking.
And you said no.
I said,
whoa there with your...
I will send them. Yeah, I know. But it was great. I put them in my caramel squares and it was lovely. But the colours are so pretty.
Yeah,
it's gorgeous.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Exactly.
We use a lot of sea salt at home, but like we're just pinching this in. It's gorgeous.
Yeah,
Very nice.
So
nice.
So what we can do is then link to the recipe for these.
Yes.
The tahini
I'm going to
squares.
thank Susan Jane White for not exact recipe, But she started me off on the tahini fudge thing a few years ago, and I haven't looked back. It's the simplest,
it's
like,
so
show-stopping square thing you can do. That was her, like, she put pomegranate seeds in a Valentine's one she did when she was on, what's that huge food blog thing in the States? I don't know. Anyway, she was on their live Facebook Live on Facebook on the Valentine's.
They're fantastic. Like, tahini is just, like, everyone should know about tahini.
They should.
Like, never mind walnut butter.
So, very quickly, plant-based?
Me personally?
Yes.
Almost. On my definition of plant-based, how do you define it?
So no, I'm just curious more because if you're going down the plant-based route, a lot of conventional medicine would say that that's going to be missing out a lot on calcium.
Okay.
And that's kind of one of the things that people come into start thinking, well, my son's not drinking milk. What could I do for calcium? Do you have any particular tricks for that, or what's your opinion on it? Or?
So when I say I'm plant-based, like my definition of plant-based is that my diet is based, like, not to sound like an Egypt, but it's based around plants.
No.
But it's not vegan, it's not vegetarian.
Okay.
You know, so I eat meat, I eat some dairy. I'm a huge fan of Greek yogurt. Like, I love Greek yogurt.
Like a 400-gram pot gone?
Well, like over 2 days.
Yeah. I haven't seen your cupboard yet, but I think I know what's going on.
Like, I've no dairy intolerance or anything like that. I just, like, prefer plant milks. And I actually ended up swapping a couple of things last year, just more from a plant-based effect on the environment point of view.
Cool. That's important.
Yeah, that was more kind of what spoke to me about it. Like, I know a lot of people have made changes off Netflix documentaries and things like that, and I think some are more valuable than others. I think some are more scaremongering than others.
Big time. I mean, some of the science that's out there is not any science out there is like contentious, but
contentious, exactly. So I'm a huge fan of the idea of a plant-based plate. So kind of that, like, the Eat Well plate is quite a good example. You know, like, quarter kind of complex carbs, quarter protein, half veg. And I just think in general, population could benefit so much more from a plant-focused diet. Maybe not plant-based. I'm not telling. Like, I think there's a huge impact in, let's say, swapping out some of your meals, doing a meat-free Monday, meat-free lunches. You know, I met someone before who was doing like 9 to 5 vegetarian, and that wasn't to say they were going home and horsing a steak every night, but like their lunches.
You're like sitting a dream of steak at 4:30.
Wait, doesn't count if you have it all at the evening time. But like those kind of things are so valuable, particularly for the environment. And also, I was writing about it this morning because it's this week's Friday focus, but we don't get enough fibre at all, like as a population here and the UK. Like 30 grams a day based on like guideline, and the fact sheet Alpro gave me about plant-based diets and fibre for the doctor's wellness stuff. They gave me so much helpful information. And it's written by 2 very, very good dietitians, and like the average intake's about 18 grams, you know.
Wow.
And we were talking
and
about
even 30 grams is it's not like optimal.
It's not. And like it sounds like a lot to people when you say the number, but actually when you break it down to the different meals and what they'd have in them, do you know, it just makes it so much easier to normalise it. So that's
what's a way that people could, if people are listening and they're going, okay, I really want to up my fibre intake. What are the quickest changes they could make, or simple?
Coming in this Friday's.
Oh, sorry, I'm really. This will come out later.
No, the idea actually came from. I have a lovely friend called Catherine. She's the sporty dietitian on Instagram, and I call her my twinnie up the north, and I'm her twinnie down the south, and she's in Belfast. But we have done a couple of blog posts about plant-based diets, and we followed up this one with. It's kind of, I wanted to give like a couple of examples from like a breakfast, lunch and dinner and healthy snacks point of view of like plant focused recipes. So let's say like one of the dinner ones we're doing is like a 3-bean chili. So everyone knows chili, everyone knows beef chili, like, you know, but you could either, you know, swap out half the mince and put in some kidney beans and black beans, increase your fibre that way. Or you could make it completely veggie and try a meat-free Monday. Other stuff we were kind of looking at was like doing like, say, dal, like a vegetarian dal. Do that really simply. Like I use chickpeas in pretty much everything that I cook. So if I'm cooking for my family and I'm doing a curry, just bung a tin of chickpeas in, and everyone's getting an extra kind of like 5-6 grams of fibre per serving.
And loads more protein, loads more calcium, and lots of fun stuff.
I think it's about awareness. Like I think in general, people's plant-based foods, so like veggies are obviously a really good way to kind of increase your fibre if you try and get like 2 servings in, you know, with your dinner, with your lunch. Obviously in the morning's a little bit less palatable.
So you're not going for the 9 servings a day cancer prevention diet now?
Are we saying 9? I heard it was 10 now.
Oh, is it 10?
I don't know. That's what I
didn't check this week.
I think 5 and 6 is a brilliant place to start.
It's an impressive achievement if you get 5 or 6, isn't it?
That's it. Like, and you have to make it accessible, you know. I suppose there's so many options, like swapping, let's say, if you're a person who is kind of presuming predominantly like white bread or white rice, swap those for the brown varieties. Really easy swap to do. Every shop has that option now. And more fibre, slower release carbohydrates, better satiety, you know, all those simple things.
A lot of people up their fibre get issues like digestive issues as well.
They do, and I think a lot of that is it's like if someone one day is not vegan and then decides to go vegan, and you know, to hit the same amount of macronutrients, you got to eat a lot. Like, you have to eat a huge amount. And it's too much too soon, you know. And in fairness, actually, the fact sheet is it's actually online. I'll link it in the blog post on Friday. But it's very good for that. You know, it talks about like if you go from, if you think about what fibre does, you know, like it feeds your gut bacteria, and so. If you're going to just give them a bucket load of things to feed on, there's a lot of fermentation going on.
Huge.
You know, there's a lot of end product going on. You want to stay regular, but you don't want to...
Gaseous and physical.
Yeah, exactly. I think slow and steady is probably the best way to, you know, making little changes at each meal, changing out some of your snacks, having some nuts
Bang on.
for your snacks, and nuts, you know, little things.
Cool. Nice.
And in the blog post, I've got like the fibre content of like common, let's say, plant-based snacks as well.
Okay,
so
brilliant.
yeah, it should be.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's a really good one. It's a really important one. It's kind of like this selectivity. Like once you create awareness, you can create change.
So we can link to that by the time this comes out. That'll be out.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, this Friday. Yeah.
Okay,
Ciara,
thank you so much for coming on.
So much to talk about.
Thank
you for having me.
As per usual, we're kind of like, damn, it's like, how are we tying ourselves towards like a close to an hour thing? Like,
It's very hard. So we're going to link, for
yeah.
everyone listening, we're going to link to that blog post that you were talking about. We're also going to link to your recipe for the caramel squares and your walnut nut butter.
Yeah, perfect.
And then we will also add in Finn's tahini butter.
We're going to demand your caramel squares next time you come.
Yes, definitely. Oh my god. Yeah, I'll do better next time.
Good. Okay,
thanks for having me, guys. Brilliant. Yeah.
Thank you guys for watching.
Thank you.
And whoa, hang on a minute.
Wait, sorry.
We're not done yet. It's giveaway time.
Oh, true.
Aww. So treats. For you, we have got some treats.
Oh my god. What?
So this is our...
As well as tahini fudge.
I know, it's too much. It's too much.
Oh god, I'm going to cry. Yeah, exactly.
So this is our New Zest Barrel Bag. We are like happily supported by New Zest, and so they've given us also cleaning protein tub. They're vanilla flavour.
Stop.
It's sweetened with coumatin. It's superb. And it's the quality. You love New Zest already. Hey, that's good news. So it's a win. There's also a sachet of the good green stuff hanging around in there somewhere. We've also got, I think, one of everyone's favourite foods, a big pouch of organic turmeric powder.
Gorgeous. Favourite spice. Spice.
Yeah, but
top three.
Have you tried these?
I think I have at Wellfest,
Okay,
I think I have.
Yeah. Like, does a really, really good job. There's maple activate and walnut savory.
Oh, maple.
And have you tried this?
No.
Oh, have you not?
No,
I'm always putting it in my stories all the time.
I saw this in Nourish in town, and I was actually, I love that colour, so I was drawn by the colour, and I saw cashew, and I was like,
the branding's brilliant, isn't it?
Really good.
The amount of people, I put it in my stories all the time because that's my son, that's what he calls hopsack nut butter, because that's the only place I can always get it.
Yeah.
And he's always like, people, whenever I put it in my story, the amount of people that comment going, what is that? Where can I get it?
Yeah, and we had Patrick Beach on at Wellfest. And like we were like, oh listen, maybe there's too much stuff here. He travels very light. So we were like, this is probably, you don't want to hold bags up, but he reaches that.
Yeah, I'll take that.
He knew about it.
Oh really?
Because like it's a buddy of his.
I'm gonna say his best friend's brother.
So it makes it it's bizarre.
Are they an Irish company?
No, it's Glasgow. It's a little couple in Glasgow.
That's
amazing.
You just go to Glasgow again. Oh my
god. Another trip.
Yeah.
And then two of our other favourite things. Actually, we'll stay on the nut butter theme. This is Proper Chocolate Company. Have you tried our new...
I see this now. It's the first time I've seen it, but I saw all your delicious Insta stories about it.
Oh, cool. Hey, so that's a try for that. That's a very limited edition, so there's only about 100 of them left on the planet.
Oh my god.
You are lucky.
That's a lot. Yeah.
Very much so.
And then Ryu. Do you know Ryu?
We were just talking about it when you went to
This is where I got my first
We were just
jar.
going, Ryu, Katie.
Oh my god.
Okay, so we know enough said about Ryu.
Yeah,
we're all fans.
this stuff is dangerous.
If you want to find it, it's called White Mouso.
Oh yes, you can find online there. Find their Instagram. We'll put links again in the show.
You just put it on everything, basically.
You just put it on everything, yeah.
That's it.
Spoons.
Eggs, avocado on toast,
so all
rice
of that
bowls.
Is for you.
Stop.
Yes,
oh my
indeed.
gosh.
That's a little treat bag.
Thank you. Oh wow. Thank you so much.
You guys could also win one of those guys if you like, subscribe, post your comments, your favourite comments.
Send us your favourite nut recipe.
Oh, do that, definitely.
Oh my gosh.
He wants all your favourite nut recipes from you. Good stuff. Okay. Thank you very much for watching, guys. And before our podcast twice goes insane, we'll say goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.